All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Casey. We are joined today with Coach Tom and Coach Chase, and they are in the other screen here in just a second. But this is Shot Science Overtime number 69, I believe. Today we're going to talk about a topic which is can't shoot three, here's how. And we'll give you guys a little bit of insight on how to maybe fix that problem if you're struggling with that. And then after that, we're going to jump right into questions and answers. And when we do that, we need you guys to send us your questions. So right now, if you have an opportunity, go in and send us a tweet. We are at Shot Science on Twitter. You can also send them to us in the chat or in the Q&A app here on Google+, or also try us on Facebook. But the best way to get us is on Twitter. So make sure you send us your questions if it's anything basketball related, if it's on shooting, dribbling, fast breaks, defense, whatever it is, send them to us, and we will try to answer them to the best of our abilities. We have a lot of coaching experience here, playing experience too, so we can try to give you the best answer we possibly can. So send us those questions right now. Also, please go out and try to get your friends and your family to show up for the chat, because the more people that we have here for these chats, the more cool guests that we can have. In the past we've had NBA players like Danny Green from the San Antonio Spurs. We've had a lot of college coaches here. We've had some coaches that help kids get into colleges that are part of traveling teams and clubs. And we've had some former players. So please go out there and tell your friends and family to show up, and we will try to bring in more cool guests for you guys. Okay, so how about we say hi to Coach Tom and Chase? What's up, you guys?
Hey, Casey, how are you today?
I'm good. You guys?
Ready to rock?
All right, so today's topic is can't shoot the three, here's how. So if people are struggling to make three-point shots, which are a little bit further away than general shots are, what are some tips or some approaches that you guys think might work best?
Well, one of the things that comes to my mind, because the question that I see quite often from people is that they shoot pretty good up to maybe 15 or 16 feet, and then after that their shot begins to break down. And there's a couple things that come to my mind right off the top. Number one, they probably are feeling like they're too far away. They're trying to get more power in the upper body. And what happens is that tends to make your shot kind of flat and short. So what you want to do is maintain that leg power for the thrust to get the ball the arc and the distance that you want. And so the shot kind of breaks down. So one of the things that you can find out by going to one of our videos is called Make the Three-Pointer, Get Your Legs Into It. It kind of explains in that video how you need to connect with your legs to the shooting stroke so that you have enough power. Chase, anything?
Yeah, I think looking at the importance of the three-point shot too and how old you are, obviously age is a huge factor into this, because most NBA players shoot 30% and over is a pretty good three-point percentage. Yes. So, if you're looking at percentage of shot, you want to look at what the percentage of three-point shot is versus a closer shot to the basket. So maybe not relying as heavily on three-point shots as well. So looking at your age range and working on developing that skill before you really start deploying it in the game situation as much.
Right.
Right. I would agree. I think that there's probably too much emphasis on it, especially if it's not something that's not yet in your repertoire. And one of the things too that I think is really important is you were talking about the upper body strength and lower body strength kind of components of that, but also just putting that all together into the connectivity of it. A lot of people, they lose power at certain little sticking points when they're shooting the basketball. So if you have any little point on your shot where there's a hitch or a stall, you lose power at those different points. And if you have multiple ones, you're losing it at different points throughout your shot in different places. So if you're trying to have a shot that generates as much power as you need to make sure you eliminate those areas and make sure your shot is completely connected from your feet all the way up to your release. And if you don't do that, then you will lose power, and that might be why you come up short on three-point shots.
Right. One of the things is a lot of players, I think, particularly younger ones, think that the main source of your power is your upper body. I met with a student last week, and I was asking him that question. You can generate 100% of your own power. How do you think it breaks down with percentage-wise for your upper body and shoulders, and then for your core muscle group and your legs, and what percentage. And it was kind of interesting because his comment was, I think probably 70 or 80% of it come from my shoulders and arms. Well, in fact, that's not really even close. What it is probably more like 15 to 20%, and then the core and muscles of the legs, because they're such large muscles, they're the ones that really produce the power for you. The other thing is, if somebody is having difficulty in shooting a three-pointer or getting the ball tends to be short for them, one of the things that we talk about too is the fact that you need to maybe bend the legs a little deeper. And you know, some people think that means that you've got to take and dip down another 6 or 8 inches in order to get the power that you want. And in reality, because of the size of those muscles, if you take and dip maybe 2 or 3 inches, that gives you the sufficient power to get that thing to the basket. And so it's not like you have to bend those legs a whole bunch in order to get the power.
Right. And you know, the thing about it too is that after a while, once you kind of have done that a bunch, you kind of innervate your muscles, and they start to be able to fire more efficiently. So you don't have to go quite as deep when you bend your legs. Cool. And that kind of leads into the way that you're able to get to the point where you can shoot those shots, which is using something like the form shooting drill, which we have a video on, where you start out close and you master the close-in shots, and as you master that close-in area, you can take a step back and kind of incrementally move yourself back so that you're filling in that space where you're able to shoot shots from different distances. And as you move back, you will find that you're going to be much more prepared to start shooting those three-point shots if you've worked your way back, instead of shooting like a couple of 5-footers and then you move back and you're shooting a 20-footer. I mean, that's how your mechanics break down, is that you haven't built up the muscle memory, the mechanics aren't there, and if you're heaving some shot from 20 feet that you haven't worked up to, then obviously the mechanics are not going to be where they need to be for that. So using the form shooting drill is really going to help you. If you take your time, there's no quick fix. You have to take your time and work yourself back segmentally.
You know, I think that video Casey shows us in the close-up position, but I think we also talk or maybe demonstrate where we step away an additional 3 feet or so as we begin to develop that distance. Is that true? I can't remember that for sure.
Well, I think we talk about just moving back as you master that closer area. And you know, I think we might have said in the video that we only step back one time, but you know, you just want to move back incrementally. So you master the close-in shots, and you're making those. Take a step back and start working on that distance. Take another step back. You just want to do it, you know, taking your time, moving back as you progressively master the closer areas.
Right. You know, one of the things that's really important too, that form shooting drill is so good for just youngsters who are just getting started, and also players who have played quite a bit. Because one of the things that I run into with new students is oftentimes their mechanics have broken down. And in fact, I have people get back to me and say, "Can I come for a tune-up?" I had actually a text today from a young man who wants to come this next week, because there's something wrong with his shot and he doesn't feel like he can fix it. He hasn't been able to. One of the things that I like to do personally is that when I'm working with somebody, I want to give them a complete understanding of all the mechanics of the shot so that they can kind of figure it out for themselves. Not everybody can do that. Sometimes you're missing some little item, and usually we can pick it out within 10 or 15 minutes and kind of get you going the right way.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe Chase can talk about this a little bit too, but, you know, one of the things that I think is super important is that you try to have your shot be the same whether you're shooting a 5-foot shot as if you're shooting a 22-foot shot. And, you know, people that add in all these extra kind of things to their shot to try to get more power or more distance or whatever, they need to realize that doing that kind of stuff is adding in a variable to where your shooting mechanics can break down, and some issue can arise just because you're adding in these different elements. You really want your shot to be the same no matter where you shoot it from on the floor, right?
Yeah, and then I think it's going to change slightly as you move back, just naturally based on the distance to the hoop and you know, kind of the arc angle on it. But the mechanics themselves should not change much. There's obviously an increase in power output. So it's going to naturally change the mechanics slightly, but I think the biggest thing is what Casey's trying to allude to with that is you don't want to add a dip mechanism to it. You don't want to add a different launch point. You don't want to have a lot of those different metrics. So it's really important just to think about the same consistent stroke, which is why you do form shooting, move your way back, and those mechanics are naturally going to change as you slowly take steps back to go further and further, but they should be relatively the same throughout the whole motion from a 5-foot shot to a 20-foot shot.
You know, another thought that comes into my mind as I'm listening to Chase there is that often my students have difficulty in their shot if they're shooting a higher set point, and as they move further away from the basket, they begin to drop it down so they're shooting it off their shoulder. Well, that's a change, but not much, because this delivery point versus this delivery point has not changed much. It's mostly just a matter of power, but still, I think you want to have the higher set point if you're physically able to do that, because it makes it more difficult for defenders to contest the shot and that sort of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, you want your shooting to be essentially as close to the same as possible, no matter where you shoot it from. Of course, you're going to have to make some minor changes when it comes to like power and stuff like that. But that's generally from like your legs. And your lower body and core and stuff like that. You don't necessarily want your shooting release to be too different. Otherwise, you're going to have different releases that are going to, it's hard to replicate those kind of things if you have different releases from different points on the floor. So you definitely want to have some repeatable, efficient shot that essentially is the same no matter where you shoot it from.
You know, one of the things that comes to my mind as you're talking there, Casey, is this is something I see quite often is players who are moving away from the basket, they tend to allow the elbow to rotate to the outside, and trying to get more power on it. But the negative effect of that is the shot typically becomes flat and short, just by allowing that elbow to flare out, either before or during the shot. Some players, as they shoot, will allow that elbow to rotate out, and the effect is that it's going to be short and flat typically.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, let's wrap it up. And I think just by saying that the best way to be able to increase your range when it comes to shooting is to go slow and use something like the form shooting drill. Right.
Right. Absolutely is.
And build your way back. You don't necessarily need to shoot a layup and then go shoot a 25-foot shot. You want to kind of take your time, build yourself back slowly, and your mechanics will be there the whole way. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
I need some confirmation. Oh, and I should also say that you guys are not here in Santa Cruz. You guys are in Oklahoma at Chase's house. Right?
Yes, we are.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. And Chase is sending me text messages apparently too. Let's see. This is the point in the show where we transition and we start taking people's questions, and we have a bunch today, you guys. So if you guys want to have your question answered, the best place to hit us up is on Twitter because everybody's hitting us up everywhere else. And we're going to try to get through as many of these questions as we can. Anything basketball related, hit us up. You can also go out there and tell your friends and family to show up and watch the show because that helps us get more cool guests. So, okay, we're going to jump right into this stuff. Let's see. This one is from Courtney Lockhart in the Q&A from Google+. She says, how can I make 3's off the dribble?
Well, you want to handle that one?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it just comes down to practice and repetition. I think the footwork is probably the most important piece of all of it.
Absolutely.
One of the big things that we teach is in a, if you're right-handed, obviously it's the mirror opposite if you're left-handed, but really trying to focus in on the correct footwork. But if you're moving to the right and you're right-handed, you really want to see that left-right finish up into a shot. You don't want to hop into the shot. That's one of the biggest things that causes issues with shooting, especially three-pointers, but even inside the arc, is when you hop, you limit yourself to only that movement. So there's not a counter movement that's possible to it. So it's really important to make sure that you continue your footwork. You want to have a staggered approach to where it is left-right into your shots, or lead foot or trail foot, lead foot into your shot. What's that?
Stop gather.
Yeah, stop gather. So your stop gather foot, and it's really important to have those two separate incidents happen instead of hopping into your shot. Because as soon as you hop, you commit 100% to that, and the defender knows exactly what you're going to do. If you have kind of the stop-gather, you have the opportunity to stop, gather, and still change before you pick the ball up, which may be a crossover back the other direction, and you have lots of different opportunities. So I think in really focusing in, though, it's in repetitions in that same movement and really getting footwork down. And I would say even more than shooting. This is something you can do at night in your house. You don't need to have a basketball court to do it, but just getting the footwork down is by far 80% of the whole deal. And then obviously it ties in the rest of your shot mechanics, but footwork is key on that.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, footwork is the key not only to basketball, but tennis, soccer, and you can go on down the list of different sports where how you use your feet is the key to how successful you're going to be as a player.
Right. I mean, here's the thought on it, too. When you're doing the 1-2 step into the shot, it's not like you're doing a slow motion 1 step, 2 step. I mean, this is a lightning fast kind of 1-2 type of footwork. And what you're able to do when you do that is stay on balance, and you're also able to stop your momentum from going in any direction other than stopping and going straight up into your shot. Because if you're adding in some kind of directional component to your shot, then that's a variable that you add into your shot where your accuracy will fall off. So the 1-2 will help you get that stopped into that one spot in space so that you can get right up into your shot and have no variable in terms of your directionality. The other thing is this, is when you hop into a shot, like Chase was talking about, you essentially are going from high to low to high. But when you're stepping into the shot, you're starting before you even pull the ball up off of the dribble, and you're starting from low and going to high. So you're eliminating that up and down motion where you're going to lose time, and you're also going to lose probably balance because you have to shift your balance, and you're able to get right into your shot. So your shot's going to be quicker if you do that. The other thing that I know my dad will definitely agree with is that the last dribble on that pickup dribble is one that you just want to pound in the ground. It's going to be one that, you know, it's going to help you generate rhythm, but it's going to be one that you pound harder into the ground than you do the ones that you lead up to it. And, you know, I think we talk about that when we do the footwork for shooting video that we did a long time ago. But on that last dribble, as you're doing the 1-2 step, you pound it into the ground because it's going to go boom right into the ground, come right up to your hands, and you're going to go right up into the shot, and it'll help you generate rhythm. Right?
You know, it also makes that the not only the rhythm of the shot, but the quickness of the shot is going to be much more effective. Oftentimes when we lay those lazy dribbles out there, when we go to pick it up, it makes the shot and the footwork sluggish, and you don't want that. You want it to be very crisp, and you get right into it. One of the things that occurs to me, when you are hopping into your shot, oftentimes what you do is not be really on balance. And some people will tell you that it's quicker for you to hop into the shot. Well, not necessarily the case. If you are actually stepping in with your stop foot or your lead foot as you get in, not the lead foot, but the opposite foot, as you're starting to get into the shot, what happens is that you're already into that footwork before the ball comes up into your hand, and then your rotation in, and the shot is gone. So it's not faster to hop in. It's actually much more efficient for many reasons, if you take and use the 1-2 or the stop and gather footwork.
Yeah, I mean, it just helps you generate rhythm. It eliminates some of the work you have to do after pulling the ball up. It's more efficient. Okay, so next question. This one is from Joey Warwick, who is asking, how can I make my shot more efficient?
Well, you know, probably the process would be something like this, is that you need to make sure that your shooting mechanics are effective. And you can do that by checking out our videos, and they will give you a description and show you how to do that. And then once you have them kind of working for you in an efficient manner, then you want to spend a ton of time so they begin to develop a level of comfort when you shoot that ball. Chase, you're a really good shooter. What thoughts do you have on that one?
I think there's a couple things. I think number one is looking at what the goal is. So is the goal to be a better shooter in game situations? I think that's obviously the case for everybody. So the answer is you have to practice a lot of that at game speed. But you have to build up to that. So you have to work on your form shooting, improve the mechanics, and then really deploy it from the standpoint of at-game speed. A lot of times players will practice at 50% speed because they're just not comfortable yet. And it's better to make mistakes and do it poorly and then build into that at full speed than to try to go half speed all the time, and you just never get to that game speed mechanic. So when you go into your shot, you're still at 75% of what you can do, and the guy's right there in front of you because you're only going at 75%. So really important to go full speed all the time. Obviously if you're working on your mechanics, you can build into that, but when you're really practicing efficiency for full speed in game, it's important to do that at game speed.
Right, and you're just getting used to the idea of operating at game speed is really important because, as Chase mentioned, that when you get into game speed and all you've done is practice and maybe a 50% element there, you're not going to be very effective, and they're going to pressure the crap out of you. You won't be able to get the shots off that you're really looking for.
Right, and for me, one of the things that I think is super important when it comes to efficiency is definitely the things you guys are saying, but also working on eliminating the variables that you don't need to have in your shot. Yeah. So that's like little hitches or movements that don't lend directly to your shooting mechanics or putting the ball in the basket. Because if you have these other things that are going on, those are points in your shooting mechanics where things break down or can go wrong, and you don't need them. So why even use them? So when you're putting together your shooting mechanics, you need to think about each element that you include. And when you watch our videos, you look at it and you evaluate it and you make sure that you're picking that because it makes logical sense to have it in your shot. And we wouldn't present it to you guys if we didn't think it actually did help, but you need to have that process going on in your mind too. So when we say don't do things like dipping the ball or hopping into the shot or all these things, it's because that's not the most efficient approach to your shot. You want to make it as simple as possible, and you want to make it as repeatable as possible because that will lend to accuracy, which is the ultimate goal because that's putting the ball in the basket, right?
Yep, very true.
Okay, so let's move on. We can talk about shooting efficiency all the time. Let's see. This one is from...
Okay, Casey, hang on. Let's back up for a second there.
Okay.
With regard to that, one of the things that's really important for players is to know, what do I look like when I shoot? Because oftentimes we can't see ourselves, and so we need to have some way to examine what it is that we're doing. And we can do that. There's a friend of mine that is a shooting coach in, I believe, in Nebraska, and one of the things that he does is he has his players take and execute their shooting stroke in front of a mirror so they can actually see what it is that they're doing. But I think in addition to that, if you have access to a camera, and most everybody that has an iPhone today have cameras in there that will allow you to take a movie or a video of yourself shooting and take that from several angles as you're shooting. And then go back and review it. And, okay, does this look like what those guys are talking about? Well, no, it doesn't. How come? And then you start to kind of address the different elements in your shot, and you begin to know what you look like when you shoot it, which is really important because otherwise, I had somebody the other day that was telling me, I've been doing this for a long time, and I think this is what I should continue doing. And he had the ball back over the top of his head, and all of his shots were short and flat. How come they're short and flat, Coach? Well, the reason is that you've got the ball back over the top of your head, and about the only motion that can get him there is this kind of motion, and that's not good. You want to elevate that elbow when you are starting the shot, for the arc of the shot.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Let's go to the next question. This one's from Corey McNeil, who is at McNeasy with 3 Ys on Twitter. He says, how do I reduce the arc of my shot? Could this be the result of me shooting in my slanted driveway?
How do you reduce it?
That's what he says.
Gosh, it's hard for us to really tell you how to reduce it because we can't see what it looks like.
I think that you have to look at your shot and see whether it needs to be reduced. I mean, there's definitely an area that is optimal for your arc, and if you're shooting it too high, then you're essentially shooting a longer shot. But if you're shooting it too low or flat, then you're not going to have the greatest angle of incidence when it comes to the rim. So you need to find out, like, where does your shot look like it's falling on the spectrum of of the shot's arc trajectory or whatever. So
and I would say 95% are too flat.
right.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
So that's probably the issue. I would say that losing arc on your shot is probably the least important.
Yeah.
Right.
So
We have a couple of videos that we probably ought to mention regarding that, Casey. One of them is getting perfect arc, and I believe the other one has to do with what is my target for the shot, because when you take and look at those two videos, it kind of explains, number one, the arc of the shot, the optimal arc of the shot. And there's no way for you to really examine that arc unless you can see yourself in video and you can see that, okay, that looks pretty good, or it doesn't, because you can't visualize. And coaches, and I'm guilty of this myself, they will tell you, okay, the arc of that shot as it approaches that basket should be somewhere between 45 and 50 degrees. Well, they don't understand that. Most players don't really understand that. And so if you're able to take a video of yourself, then you get some kind of an idea on that one.
right. And like Chase said, most people are shooting much more flat than they are having too much arc. So
yeah, and let me just kind of underline something on that that's really important too. If you're shooting a flat shot, you're really shooting at a smaller target. And if you take a look at getting more arc into it, you'll understand what we're talking about on that. When you get a flat arc that just enters over the front rim of the basket is only as large as that basketball, 9.5 inches. Now, we can make that once in a while, but the goal ought to be, I want to make that a lot. And so by increasing the arc, you can also increase the landing area on that basket, so that you have a larger area in which to get the ball in.
right. Okay. So we're going to go on to the next question here. This is at JDub97, who is Julian White on Twitter. He asks, what makes Stephen Curry's jump shot quick? How can I make a quick jump shot for myself?
It's kind of interesting. That's a question that we kind of get every once in a while. How come it's so quick? Well, number one, it is super efficient. He takes all of those variables that Casey was talking about a while ago out of the shot by just being really efficient. His footwork is really very clean. There are times from when, depending on how he's receiving the ball, how he's picking it maybe off the dribble, he does often take the little hop, but usually he is getting into the shot with the 1-2 footwork, and he's getting ready to shoot it before he even picks that basketball up. And then by getting it quicker, you eliminate what kind of things, Casey?
Well, I mean, what?
What kind of things do we need to eliminate to make that a clean shot?
Well, I mean, you don't want to be dipping the ball. You don't want to be, adding in your assist hand at all. You want to make sure that you're not adding any hitches into your shot. The thing about Steph Curry's shot is that he is starting it before he picks up the dribble. He's starting it before he catches on the pass. He has the 1-2 footwork that he uses, and he goes straight up. There is no hitch in his shot, and it's all one fluid motion that's connected. A lot of guys, they don't have that kind of fluid connection of their shot, and so it's going to take a longer time. It's not that he is like rushing his release, which is a major no-no. You don't rush the release. He is just making everything efficient to get up into the release. So that is kind of just being taken care of before or in a faster fashion. But the release is all the same speed, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is just that is the repetition over and over again of something that he's been able to speed up through the course of catching and releasing and feeling more comfortable with it. I mean, that was one of the biggest things is I had a very quick release when I was playing, and it was just all about efficiency and then practice over and over again of that shot. So, it's the same mechanics, but I could shoot it a whole lot quicker or kind of at my normal tempo. And I think a lot of his is probably the same, is that he can get that shot off quicker than he needs to as well, where you're rushing a little bit, but he's done the mechanics and worked on them so much that it doesn't affect the overall shot nearly as much as somebody who doesn't have that much polish to their shot.
True.
Right.
True.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go to the comments in the video. This is from the Exotic 9, who says, I can't see very well from long distance and I don't wear glasses. Is that affecting my shot? Well, I think you answered your question right there already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shooting is very visual. You have to be able to judge distance and see your target and see what's going on around on the floor, just to make sure that you're taking an uncontested shot. I mean, yeah, if you're not able to see, you're in trouble. That's why there's not very many blind guys dominating the game.
Tongue in cheek.
Well, I'm a blind guy. If I don't wear my contacts, I'm in trouble. So.
If I don't wear my glasses, I am in trouble. Yeah.
But yeah, go get your eyes checked and get some glasses or something. Okay, this one is from Stewie5561, and they ask, I always seem to either over or undershoot the ball. I'm usually on target but constantly hitting the ring and just not having enough power to shoot from 22 to 24 feet away. Any tips? Well, we kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, I can't imagine, I don't know how old this young man is, but I can't imagine why you would be wanting to shoot from that 22 feet. I mean, that's almost 3 feet beyond the three line. And, you know, if you get right at the three line, most people don't even really know this, but players anyway, is that the three line in high school is 19 feet 9 inches. And I can't think of any really good reason, unless you're Chase Curtis, that you're shooting beyond the 22 feet mark. Would you agree with that?
Hey, if you can shoot at a good percentage.
Yeah, if the percentage is the key point. Well, the other thing that you mentioned there, I think, Casey, is that he tends to be short sometimes. Did he mention that?
Well, over and under shooting it.
Okay, all right. Let's just take and cover just the if you're short. One of the things that makes the shot short, particularly if it's a jump shot, is that we have a tendency to hang and wait to deliver the ball. You jump up into the air, and there's a moment there where you reach the highest point you can jump, and you yet have not started to release the ball, and you're starting to settle back. And when you do that, you're probably going to be short. And the thing that's really interesting about it is you will feel, before you release the ball, you will feel that you're going to be underpowered. And oftentimes what we do when we feel that being underpowered is we rack the shoulders to try and get more power, which is not going to be an effective shot for you. And so hanging on your jump shot is probably going to make you short and flat. So then the answer that you asked the question probably is, well, when should I release it? Well, one of the things you want to be doing when you shooting a jumper is you want to shoot that ball as you're reaching the top. It's just a continuation of your jump, and that way you're able to get that power into it. If you're too long constantly, well, that's probably more a result of not practicing enough. I think that tends to be a bigger problem. It's just that you don't practice your shooting enough.
Right, and I would say that if you're going to try to shoot those long distance shots, use the form shooting drill and move yourself back incrementally. Do it the right way, and you will eventually get to that distance and be able to have the kind of proper mechanics in place, and accuracy will be there. Okay, so this one is from Twitter. This is at @nobody_can, who says, tips on shooting with your fingertips. What fingers should the ball come off of?
Well, you want to go with that one? Go ahead, Chase.
He's doing it.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah, I think the ball needs to be on your finger pads, obviously. That's the most important thing. Not on your fingertips, not on your palm. And obviously, as you go to finish, those two fingers want to be the release point for you. So it's important to have a nice solid spread of your thumb. You want to have that distance of the ball on your finger pads, and as you finish, the last two should be those two pointing fingers, and that's what's going to get you the kind of roll-over-roll arc of the shot, as opposed to some sort of side spin. If the ball comes off the outside tips of your finger, that's where you start to get some odd rotations to it, and it's going to affect the flight of the ball. So the most accurate is when the ball is spinning over itself straight, and those two fingers are the finish.
Right.
One of the things, Casey, you may want to address this. One of the things that we come across on the internet is the 1 down, 3 up release. You want to run that one by?
Yeah, I mean, for us, one of the huge parts of releasing the ball is that two-finger release, and the reason why is because when you release off of one finger, you can see how there is zero stability on the ball, and that's just because you have one small, tiny point of contact on the ball itself. So if you add in that second finger and the ball comes off like this, I mean, you have so much more control over the basketball, and so when it comes off of your fingers, you're going to be much more accurate, because if it comes off that single finger, even if it just slightly shifts to one side, you lose control and your accuracy will definitely be affected. So having that two-finger kind of release that comes off, flop finger finish, that's going to give you a nice rotation and accuracy on your shot. Right?
One of the things that we kind of address on this too is that if you just take a baseball and throw it with just these two fingers, you'll find that it's really difficult to control where the ball is going to go. But then as soon as you add the second finger to that, and now you have 3 points of contact, all of a sudden your control really improves a whole bunch.
Right. Okay, this one is from Joey Warwick on Google Plus, who says, "How can I make space off the dribble?"
Go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about making space, and we go through this in some of our videos, is in order to create space, you have to close the space. So the easiest thing for a defender to do is to keep an arm's length distance away from you at all times. If you make it easy for them by keeping that distance and staying that distance away, it's very easy for them to make those small adjustments. The most difficult thing in the world to do as a defender is, as soon as that space is closed and contact is made, being able to keep that distance. So as soon as you make contact with them, their immediate response is, how do I get back to arm length distance in order to keep you from going around me? And that's when you have the opportunity to create space. So it's either making contact and continuing past them, or it's making contact and stepping back and separating, where now you put them into a closeout situation. And I think that's the biggest thing from an offensive goal, whether it's team or individual, is you want to put the other team into closeout situations, whether that's passing the ball to a teammate and somebody's closing out to them, or whether that's closing the space, creating space, and now they're closing back out to you. That's the biggest advantage you can get in the game of basketball, is creating that closeout situation. So in order to create space, you have to close the space. That's the most important thing you do. Get the defender closing back out to you and trying to close that gap.
And that generally creates some contact. Is that true between the offensive and defensive player? Is that true?
Yeah.
You close that space, and so and then usually they want to fight that, right? And so where do you draw the line on contact? How would you explain that so that you don't get called for that contact?
I mean, I think any contact from the offensive side is fine, as long as you don't extend a limb, or you're not going to get called for anything with your leg unless you're tripping somebody. But it's really all about the arm positioning. So if you drive, you can lower your shoulder as long as you're not lifting up into the offensive player to push them with your shoulder. But I'd say the biggest thing is just not using your forearm. So as you attack, it should be upper body shoulder contact without extending, but you definitely shouldn't have that arm coming up. You can protect yourself, obviously, but as soon as you drive and use that arm to extend, it's going to be an offensive foul. Right. So I think closing the space and using your body as opposed to an extended arm is probably going to be the most effective use of closing and making contact.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and we give probably 10 or 15 videos on all these different offensive moves that people can check out. So if you want to go look at the offensive moves playlist on our channel, you can see all these moves demonstrated, where we go through dribble attacks, we go through using the hammer, the long 1-and-1, all of these jab step, all these things that you can use to kind of create space by closing space. So check those out. All right, let's see. This one is from, let me find it. Sean Reed, who says, "How do you perfect the floater shot?"
Well, I'm gonna let you guys deal with this one, and then I might offer something later. Go ahead. How do you make that better?
Well, I mean, for me, I would just say this. I would say, in basketball, you want to take the highest percentage shots that you can. So these are open, uncontested shots where you are, there's not variables involved. When you take a floater, the thing that you are doing is you're typically adding in multiple variables to your shot, which is going to drop your percentage. So, I mean, on a floater, you're generally on, you're moving in a forward direction, and you're going to be lofting the ball up, and there's going to be several variables there. So I don't think it's the most highest percentage shot. You probably shouldn't spend too much time shooting it because it's typically going to be a contested shot. So I would work more on creating space. But if you want to learn how to shoot a floater, we have a video on it, and you can check it out. It's called How to Shoot a Floater.
I think it's important when you're mentally trying to prepare how to improve your game, is think of really a lot of these shots as kind of a pyramid. Right? There's a real foundational element that is form shooting, layup drills, just the most basic shots that you're going to shoot the most of, and then work your way up. I would say, in the NBA, you have guys that shoot floaters because it's the only way that they can shoot it over a guy who's 6'11" and more athletic. But that's after you've honed all of the skills below that in the pyramid to get the very top parts. Same thing with a fadeaway shot or anything like that. They're not high percentage shots. A lot of times NBA players will use them as a kind of last resort to hone their game over players that are more athletic and taller and longer. But really, throughout any other level, they're not important shots to use. So I would say, you really want to use a limited amount of time on those and really focus in on the core concepts. Because if you can't even create enclosed space, you're going to be a very ineffective player if all you can do is shoot floaters. Really, because you can't get there in the first place. You haven't honed your ball handling skills and a lot of the others.
Well, not only that, those are contested shots usually. One of the things that a friend of mine sent me a link today, and I spent some time looking at it, and one of the things they were talking about on this link is the fact that so many players take contested shots, and therefore they're not very effective. And so they don't know how to create uncontested shots and even shoot the ball when they are contested. And the thing this article was bringing up is the fact that the percentage of makes goes down rapidly but if you wait and move the basketball and wait until you have a good uncontested shot, the make percentage goes up dramatically rather than taking hope shots. And the hope shots are, I hope it goes in, and oftentimes it doesn't. But just looking and waiting and moving the ball, moving your body, creating a situation where you get an uncontested shot or a good look at the basket is going to really increase your potential for making the basket.
Right. I mean, the end goal is to make as many baskets as you can. And if you do stuff that are lower percentage shots like floaters and fadeaways, you probably are going to be limiting yourself. So learn to create space, take uncontested shots. If you want to work on your floater, you can. Don't spend too much time on it.
Well, a thought just came to my mind as you're talking there, Casey, is I had somebody contact me the other day and wanted to know how they should shoot the basketball if they are being challenged by a big man at the basket. Well, if you're being challenged by a big man at the basket, typically that is not an open shot. Yeah. And so you need to look at some other avenues. Number one is that he's leaving somebody to come to you. And that means that someone maybe has a better look, maybe an open look. And so you should look into maybe get the ball to the other people. Any thoughts on that, Chase?
No, I think that's right. I think that's the core concept that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so let's move on. This one is from, let's see. This one is from Saeed Gajip, who says, I have a question. How do you beat a defender that is taller than you?
How do you defend them? Is that what you said?
How do you beat a defender that is taller than you?
Oh, how do you beat a defender?
Yeah. I think you just answered that. I mean, I think it's all about closing the space to create space. And,
right.
They're going to have an advantage if they're longer than you are, especially if they're as quick and as athletic. But I think the biggest thing is the only advantage you can get over any defender is closing the space and creating space.
And just give another real quick rundown of how you close that space. What are the kinds of things that you can do to close that space down?
Aggressively attacking the basket, but the defender that's in front of you. So it's making sure that you have north to south attacks at the rim that create contact with the defender, and then working on separating and creating that closeout situation.
And a good example of a separation would be maybe a step back?
Yeah, so a good example of the whole scenario is I catch the ball, the defender's on me, I put one hard dribble towards the basket. He chests up to me in order to try to get in front and stop me, and then I can continue all the way to the rim if he doesn't get in front, or I can take one hard step back. He's still going in the other direction. I've now created space. I can shoot it there, or now he's having to close back out, and it's a lot easier to attack him again when he's coming at me and having to change directions.
Right.
It's much easier to attack in that scenario, especially some of these more athletic and longer, if they're closing out to you and having to change direction, than if all they're doing is moving in a backwards direction to stay in front of you. So I think it's important to create those situations where they're trying to close the gap.
Right, and I agree with that 100%. I would also add that you can use a psychological approach to it as well, and that is that you, as maybe the smaller guy, you need to not allow yourself to think of that as a limitation, number one. And number two, use that guy's perceived advantage over you against them. So he's probably looking at you thinking, oh, I can block this guy, I can stop him, whatever, he doesn't have a chance. If you use that against him, you could probably give him a shot fake, or probably a shot fake would be the best thing. But remember that you are also quicker than him, probably, maybe more athletic. Maybe you can get around him easier. So use things that you have the advantage with, and that might be even just psychologically tricking him into thinking you're going to shoot, get him in the air, and then you're by him. Or you go up and you get some body on him and you put the ball in and he fouls you. So you need to not worry about people being taller and think of that as being a disadvantage. You have advantages that guy probably doesn't have, so don't worry about it.
And the biggest thing out of all of it is that fundamentals and footwork will always beat athleticism.
Yes.
They'll always. So you're not necessarily at a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage if your fundamentals and footwork aren't as good as the other players. But you can always beat a more athletic, a taller, a better player if you have sound fundamentals and footwork. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If you have athleticism and length to go with that, great. But I think the biggest thing is just having those fundamentals and footwork down. You can beat any player with that, because no defender is perfect in their fundamentals, even at the NBA level. So you have the advantage as the offensive player. If you've worked on your skills to a level that you should, you can always beat any other player one-on-one.
One of the biggest problems, I think, though, is that a lot of young players are intimidated by the fact of the size difference and are unwilling to really attack. And like Casey's saying, and you as well, is that, hey, you don't let that stop you. You have elements in your game where you should have elements to your game that, hey, here we go, and we're going to the basket. Now I'm going to step back. Maybe when I step back, I'm going to cross you up. And that player probably is not going to be effective in stopping you. So don't let the psychological thing of the fact that they're bigger than you create a wall. You want to, okay, I get it, here I come.
Well, and I think a big piece of that too is, I know even being almost 8 years out of really playing competitively, I had a knee injury. I know I could still score on an NBA player. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that I could do that. It's just a matter of, would they score back on me? Absolutely. They're better players than I am, but I still know that I could score on them just by using the fundamentals and having the leverage of being the offensive player.
Right.
So, same thing back to them. I guarantee that they'd be able to score on me too, and probably more than I'd be able to score on them. But I have no doubt that, and just as you guys do, if you work on expanding your fundamentals to be sound. And that way, you can score on any player.
Well, and that also engenders a whole bunch more confidence for you as a player as you develop those skills that Chase is talking about, of footwork and moves and stuff like that. You gain more confidence, and as you gain more confidence, then you're willing to step up and challenge people, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, here's a real-world NBA example. Look at somebody like Tim Duncan, who is not exactly always the tallest guy he's going up against. He's not always the biggest guy. He's definitely not the most athletic guy, especially nowadays when he's 38 years old, going up against guys that are, some of them almost 18 years younger than he is. But, the thing is that he has fundamentals that he neutralizes those guys with. His footwork is so sound, and he knows the way to create space, and he knows how to be able to use ball fakes and things like that. And, he is just so solid on those things. He can go up against anybody and still be dominant, even though he's much older than most of those guys.
Right.
Okay, so let's lightning round this a little bit because we're getting more questions than we can cover here. Okay, so quick answers if we can.
Quick answers.
I promise.
Yeah, tone it down. Okay, here this one is from Zach Dumink, who says, "How can I make more free throws?"
Practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Form
So
shooting and practice.
it's all about repetitions, eliminating those variables, and getting a simple routine too. I've seen so many ridiculous routines that I lose my mind. Simple, repeatable. That's what you want. Okay.
One dribble, two dribble shot. Done.
What's what?
One dribble, two dribble shot. Done.
Right. Exactly. You just want to generate some rhythm and be able to get the shot off. Okay. This one is from. Let's see, Lorenzo Knowles, who says, "Hey guys, I really don't have anywhere to practice except on signs around the neighborhood, which made everyone mad. So how can I practice accuracy and pull up jump shots without a place to shoot? Thanks."
Well,
here's
we get those kinds of questions kind of often. Casey, go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have a place to practice. I don't have a hoop. I don't blah 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 whatever." The thing about it is you have to be either creative and find a place to make it happen, or you need to go out and find a place where you can get some shots in. And that might be the YMCA, that might be at a local open gym, that might be in a playground. I don't know, but you have to make it happen. And the players that reach the elite levels of basketball, they have found a place to practice, and they might not have a hoop that's right down the street. They might have to get in their car and drive 20 minutes. They might have to have a special arrangement with the YMCA. You need to figure out where you can get that done, and you might have to be creative to do it. Right?
Well, that's not an answer that we can really offer either because we don't know the circumstances. It's something you have to deal with.
Well, and I think a lot of it, too, is there's so many things you can work on without a hoop.
Yes,
ball handling. If all you did was work on your ball handling to improve that, that's a huge step. And then working on your footwork, there's lots of things you can do without a hoop.
Right. But the other thing is that if you want to have actual place to shoot hoops, you got to make it happen. You got to figure it out. Okay, this one is from Link's Goal in the chat. They say, "I'm an average plus shooter on the wing side, but when it comes to threes, I'm failing. How can I improve? I changed my shooting form this season because my coach made me. Please help me out."
Well, without seeing your shooting form, we really don't know what we could do for you to help you out. One of the things that we would encourage you to do, though, is to make a video of yourself shooting with the video front, back, and side so that we could actually see, and then we could probably give you some pretty good input into what you need to do to help fix it.
Right. And the thing is, it's just about the repeatability, using the form shooting drill, and eliminating the variables you don't need. Let's see. Let's go back to Google+. This one is from Andre DeBoss Kosari, who says, "How can I prevent being inconsistent with shooting, like having bad shooting days?"
Well, Chase, go ahead. You've had a lot of experience on those kinds of things. So
You've had a lot of experience with bad shooting days.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody that plays does experience that, and you've had experience where I can remember your 3 points. You were 0 for 10, 1 for 10, but that never held you back, never stopped you.
No, I mean, I think I've had games where I've been 10 or 11 or 12 out of 15, 17 threes that are great shooting days and record shooting days, and then the same where I've gone 0 for 12 or 0 for 13. I think you have those too. I think you look at Kevin Durant in Game 6 against the Clippers just a week ago or so, not even that much. I mean, he was 1 for 13, I think, through the first.
It was 1 for 17.
1 for 17, something like that, through the first 3 quarters, and then who was taking the shots at the end of the game. Yeah. And I think that was Game 5, actually, or maybe it was Game 6. But same thing, he was taking the shots at the end of the game and knocking them down because he has that confidence. So I think the biggest thing is just you should never think of the history of your shots while you're taking the next one. So what if you've missed 12 in a row? If you have a wide-open look, you take it. And then I think, before games, in preparation, if you've been in a slump kind of over multiple games, you just want to really focus in on form shooting and going back to the basics and thinking about, okay, let me work on just the form aspect of it and warm-ups before the game, working on just trying to get that shot groove back. and just not worrying about it in the games. If you got an open shot, you take it, even if you're 0 for 10. There's not a second thought on it.
Well, you know, a couple of thoughts that come to my mind as I hear you talk there, Chase, is number one, you're never going to make a shot you don't take. That's number one. Number two, your average, actually, as a shooter, if you're a pretty good shooter, is actually more relative over a series of games, let's say 10 games, than it is just 1 or 2 games. And the thing that is really important is that I have seen young players who are, they miss the first 2 or 3 shots that they take in the game, and then they reel it in, and they do not want to, they don't want to take any more chances on misses, which is, you know, that's kind of your lack of confidence in yourself. The one thing that I will say about Chase is that he was never afraid to pull up and shoot if he thought he had a good look. And a lot of players, after they've missed 6, 7, 8 shots, they're done, which is too bad because a lot of them are really effective shooters, but they're out of fear. They don't want to take any more. That and the fact that they're, what is the word I'm searching for? Their ego will not allow them to do that. And you've got to put all that aside. The one thing that I can remember about Chase as a player is I remember seeing him going maybe, well, when you played in the Bahamas there, you were 9 for 11 in the first half. Okay, but I can remember seeing you play other games where you went 0 for 10, 0 for 12, 1 for 12, but that never bothered you. And I love that because I think that is a challenge for anybody that's a player is forget all that stuff, and if I've got an open look, I have confidence in myself, it's away.
Well, and I think a lot of times, just real quick, is your shooting history far too often affects your shot taking, you know, even from a positive standpoint. You hit 2 or 3 in a row, the next thing you're doing, you're trying to cast up the first shot you get your hands on. Yes. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of players make. And you know, I've made that mistake plenty of times too, where you hit 2 or 3 in a row, and as soon as you touch the ball, you're thinking, all right, I got to put this thing up. And it negatively affects your shot selection. I think the same thing is to be said for when you're not shooting well. You know, it all comes down to percentages at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think when you're not shooting well, the same thing is it negatively affects a wide open shot.
Yes.
When you're wide open and you second guess it just for that split second, and then decide not to take the shot, I think it's a double-edged sword. If you know, you really have to be mentally strong enough to think, I made 2 or 3 in a row, I don't need to shoot the next shot.
Yeah.
Or, hey, use that to my advantage and know the guy's coming quickly, let's get to the rim.
Right.
And the same thing for the other side of it, is not thinking twice and just, you know, when you're open, take the shot.
Right.
Right. Way to go with the lightning round, guys.
Boom.
Yeah, you know, here's the other thing that I would say about a consistent shot is that to be consistent in a game, you have to be consistent in practice. So instead of shooting for 8 hours on Sunday every week, you want to spread that out and shoot every day for 20, 30 minutes. That's much better than having that one day where you throw it in, because if you shoot on Sunday and you show up on Saturday, it's probably not going to be there for you in the game. So spread it out, have a consistent workout, you know, as many days as possible, as often as possible. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Yeah. Right. Okay. This one is the last question of the day. This one is from HeatBlast76, who says, "Is it odd that I switch my form sometimes when I shoot from different areas? The 3 shot, I have the ball more to my side, and a step closer, I have it more to my normal form."
Well, I don't know what your normal form it means. If that means in front of and above your shooting eye, that's good. But that shouldn't change when you move over to another spot on the floor. That should always be maintained. You know, just figure this. Let's say that you shot in front of your shooting eye, then you shot it off your shoulder, and you shot it 2 hands underhand. I mean, all of those are very different and very and too variable. Take and get the shooting stroke that works for you, and stay with that no matter where you are.
Right. Okay. The other thing, I want to throw this in here too, because there's a couple people asking about post-move stuff. And somebody's asking about advanced post moves, and somebody's asking about what to do when you get in and around the basket. Check out our post moves videos. We have stuff on the drop step, the up and under, the hook shots, various hook shots, and the spin move. We have a bunch of stuff there that you can check out. You can also check out our shot fake video, because that's really important once you get inside. Get somebody up in the air, use your body to create contact and put the ball in. So check out those things if you're looking for post move stuff. that would be a good thing to kind of get in your repertoire as some of those moves. And then finally, somebody here is asking what schools you guys have coached at, and then asking about various plays and how do you cut down on the playbook to make it efficient. I will just say that, my dad has coached at a bunch of different places. He's been the head coach at a bunch of area high schools here in Santa Cruz County. He's also coached for the traveling teams that help kind of get kids into programs that are collegiate level. And my brother Chase, he's done some coaching too, but he's also a very successful former collegiate player. So there's a lot of experience there. But do you guys have any ideas on making your playbook more efficient?
I do. And I coached middle school age mostly just because it's fun for me. I've done, from a training standpoint, players in the D League and other areas as well. So I have a lot of experience in working with those type of athletes. But from a coaching perspective, especially at the younger age groups, I think it's important just to keep it super simple. We never had more than 2 out-of-bounds plays, ever. We never had more than 1 press break, ever. We never had more than maybe 3 offensive plays, ever. Yeah. And a lot of it is just developing skill sets so players can learn how to just play within the flow of more of a structured offense. Right. But from my standpoint, I think a lot of times coaches at younger athlete levels try to overcoach because they're trying to prove something. I think it's more about teaching skills and fundamentals with some framework to let them use those than it is about, hey, we got to put in 50 plays because I'm going to be the John Wooden of 7th grade girls basketball.
Well, I really agree with Chase. One of the things that I can remember, and this was a long time ago, dealing with developing players who were like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And one of the things that we did is we taught them how to play 2-man basketball. And 2-man basketball with this kind of thing. Give and go, where you pass the ball to a teammate and you make a cut to the basket. And if they can, they get it back to you. You screen and go. You screen, or you pass the ball and screen opposite, and maybe you have a cutter coming off you. And so when you have some of those very simple motions that players can execute, they're probably going to have more success. One of the biggest problems and I know we're going a little long here, but one of the biggest problems that I can see over decades of basketball with high school basketball is this. There are a number of players, almost invariably every year, it's usually not a big number, but there's a number of players who cannot recall how to execute a lot of motions that their coaches ask them to do. And as a result, they get lost in the whole flow of the game, and when that happens, then they become very ineffective. The coach gets frustrated, and so I think Chase is right. Make it simple, and it will be much more successful. You'll be doing a favor to young players in doing that.
Well, I also think as you get older, the plays and playbooks get more complex.
They do.
So as you graduate from middle school to junior varsity to high school to college to the professional levels, they obviously have a complexity that grows in the playbook in order to match the other teams. But especially at the younger levels, it's just not necessary.
No, it is not necessary. It's too complicated for their minds in those young ages to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You want to set it up so that people are able to improvise a little bit more on their own. And if you're setting it up so that it's almost like a football program, you're gonna run into people having memory issues, and it's a nightmare. That's in my high school team. We had some players that had difficulties because we had so many defensive sets and offensive sets, and they struggle with it, and it kind of ruined our chemistry a lot. So I would just say yes, make it as simple as possible, and try to show them ways to improvise their own play. Right? Okay, so I think that's it. Are you guys still there? I don't know if you froze or not. Let's see. I think we're going to wrap it up. I just want to have you guys make sure that you follow us on all of our social sites. We are at Shot Science on Twitter. We are Shot Science on Facebook, Google+, and subscribe to us on YouTube as Shot Science. If you want to check out Chase and talk to him, you can tweet him at Chase Curtis, I think it is, ChaseCurtiss, 2 S's on it. I'll try to put that link down in the description. And he'll try to answer you back if you have questions for him. If we didn't get to your questions today, it wasn't because we didn't like you. It's just because we ran out of time and there was a bunch of questions. Hit us up next week. We will be back 1 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, and we will have a new topic, new things to talk about, and we will hit up all your questions. All right? So I want to thank you guys. Thanks to Chase and my dad for showing up all the way over in Oklahoma, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.